And let me just give you a recap of our breaking news this hour. Israel is planning a military occupation of Gaza City. The Prime Minister's office has just released a statement confirming it was approved by the Security Cabinet at a meeting that lasted several hours. Earlier, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had said he wanted a complete takeover of the entire Gaza Strip. The army's already designated more than 88% of the Strip as no-go military zones or areas under displacement orders. Here's Gaza City, which Israel plans to occupy, according to these newly approved plans. About 900,000 Palestinians are estimated to be currently living in Gaza City, many of whom have had to escape Israeli attacks several times already. We're going to speak to our correspondent Tareq Azzoum, who's with us from Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. What are you hearing from people in Gaza City about their reaction to this news, Tareq?
Well, Rob, many Palestinians, in fact, in these early hours of this morning, they say that the Israeli decision to occupy Gaza is not seen as a strategic or tactical maneuver, but it's seen as the institutionalization of domination over the very desperate and starving population. People have been enduring over 22 months of displacement, fear and relentless bombardment, and now the misery is about to be complicated more by the Israeli potential step to expand its ground operations to focus primarily on Gaza City, which right now hosts hundreds of thousands of people who are living in makeshift tents in partially destroyed buildings, in schools, UN-run clinics and shelters, and also in university. Many of those who have been given that chance to return back to northern Gaza after the former ceasefire agreement that was brokered between Hamas and Israel, and now they are facing the same threat, which is to be forcibly expelled from their homes and towns to other parts of the Strip under the pretext of fighting Hamas and armed factions in these areas. People say that this has been the fear that they have all the way feeling, and right now it has become a looming reality that Israel will control Gaza City, which has been one of the main epicenter for Gaza's population, and now civilians will be forced to move to other parts of Gaza due to the intensity of the potential fighting and the bombardment campaign that will take place. People say this is no longer about defeating Hamas, but it's also right now about erasing the Palestinian rights and the Palestinian identity from the entire Gaza Strip. They believe that Israel will gradually carry out the scheme by expanding its operation ostensibly to other parts of Gaza, to include the central area where we are later, in order to, as they claim, to pressure Hamas. But on the ground, people say that it's a matter of time to find themselves in the southern part of Gaza and possibly to be pushed forcibly to the Egyptian side of the border. It means that Israel is heading with its military scheme to depopulate Gaza and to relocate Palestinians and other regional countries. But till now, there is a profound and tangible sense of frustration and rejection for the Israeli step, as many families refuse to leave Gaza City, which means that they will be either caught between the option of leaving this area or to be killed by the Israeli potential bombardment for that area. It's worth reminding our viewers that once Israel starts any kind of its ground operations in any geographical location in Gaza, they usually use lethal force, heavy fire cover, and a very deadly power by their ground military and artillery brigades to pound what's left of Gaza's residential homes. But what does it mean right now, Rob, in such critical timing? It means that Gaza will be losing more lands as Israel will eat up the main residential city in the entire Strip, and it means that more than 900,000 Palestinians will be forced to flee Gaza City and to move southward, which will add external and extra pressure on Gaza's hospitals. And we understand absolutely that hospitals in the coming days will face mounting pressure to deal with the expected high rate of casualties and death toll, as everyone on the ground right now, either in the north, the central or southern part of Gaza, are going through a huge shock of fear about what might come next.
Tareq, you were talking about the fact that this is in many ways a tightening of the grip that the Israeli military has over, in this case, Gaza City, that it's going to be focused initially on Gaza City. For those who choose not to leave the city, is there any way of describing what their life is going to be like and what things may change for them under that control?
Well, let's make it clear for our viewers that Israel is trying to replace the word occupation by the word controlling in order to soften its rhetoric in front of the international community. And they say that once they're going to dismantle all the military infrastructure in such aforementioned areas, they will hand over the entire strip to a civilian entity that will be seen from an Israeli perspective to be neutral. But what is so striking here is that Israel operated nearly in all Gaza Strip, and they have declared many areas to be militarily dismantled. That's what happened in Gaza City. But again, Israel is reoperating in these areas, but this time under a very different perspective, which is to reoccupy it and to force people to be relocated in other parts. But for those who will not leave Gaza City, life for them will be marked by utter devastation, non-stop attacks by Israeli air and ground forces, and it means that the possibility to get water and food will be shrinking day in, day out, as Israel usually strike any source of living and any kind of elements that will enable people to remain there for the longest time possible. So apparently people in Gaza City might be heading to very difficult time that will be also overwhelmed with Israeli clear expansion of ground operations. People at the moment are struggling to find access to food and water. There is a severe water crisis in the city due to the deliberate destruction of water wells and the scarcity of water sources available there. And we understand that many of them are living in makeshift tents in a dusty desert landscape where they are living under the scorching heat, and we are heading to more challenging days as the humanitarian crisis is expected to worsen. And it's worth reminding as well our viewers that only 2 main hospitals are left barely functional as a centralized medical facilities to provide treatment for hundreds of thousands of people who are still stuck in Gaza City. It means that once Israel will ramp up its military operations, these hospitals will receive unprecedented surge of influx of casualties, which will add further pressure on medical teams who are themselves going hungry for days and struggling to secure their families or even find any food sources available in that already battered city. We saw all satellite images. We have heard the rhetoric and the narrative of international media outlets once they have gone on regional planes that have airdropped food in Gaza. They describe the devastation of Gaza throughout its satellite images. And on the ground, the reality is much more bleak, as people are not just struggling with the expected surge of hostilities, but also from the potential humanitarian crisis and the ongoing manipulation of aid entry to the Strip that till now cannot meet the extensive demands of the entire population.
Tareq, I want to expand on that a little bit, because it's worth reminding our viewers, isn't that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is currently running, I think it's 4 sites in southern Gaza, one of which I don't think is working at the moment, at Khan Yunis, but there are 3 operating down towards Rafah. Now, those sites have become notorious because Palestinians who've been trying to get aid from those sites have been shot at and injured and killed. Now, if the Israeli military then takes control of Gaza City and people remain in Gaza City, there must be fears that they are going to be completely cut off from any attempts to get aid to them.
Well, Rob, Israeli reports claim that Israel will ensure that civilians who will be out of areas of fighting will be able to get humanitarian aid assistance. It means that aid will be mobilized and militarized to achieve Israel's political and military objectives. Now, people in the northern part of Gaza, how they can get aid from 2 main areas, from Zakim Crossing, which is in the far north of the Strip, where people in Gaza City will need to travel at least 14 kilometers in order to get back and forth, and from the Netzarim corridor, which is very close to where we are. We expect that Zakim point will be completely shut down by the Israeli military due to the potential expansion of operations, where people will not be able to go there because this point is very close to border towns and villages in the far north of the Strip, which are classified as active war zones, and they will only be forced to come here to the central area in order to get aid. So generally, food has been framed to push civilians southward, and it might be seen as a repetitive manner if Israel wants to extend its operations to other parts of Gaza. They will force people to go to Rafah to get aid. It seems that they will try to force families to survive by driving them to other parts of Gaza in order to get their hands on food supplies. But the entire process itself, the distribution mechanism, is chaotic, Rob. People cannot get this kind of food assistance safely and transparently in a way that can keep their dignity up. This has been a fact, an undeniable reality that everyone on the ground knows it. And people, despite this, are still taking the risk by traveling for long distance, by making that very difficult journey to Rafah, to Nazarene, to get food supplies. Me, myself, went there, and I saw how chaotic scenes and how people were shouting, pushing, climbing over each other for a chance at a food bag. This has been a very humiliating manner and very disturbing way to distribute food supplies for a population that has gone through unbearable humanitarian conditions. And at the moment, people's main concentration is how they can find a relative sense of safety, which is barely non-existent here, and how they can also find sources to feed their families with. That's why we started recently to see women themselves being killed by the Israeli military, because they have nothing to eat in the houses, and they were forced only to go to the controversial Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that has been sharply criticized not just by humanitarian actors on the ground, but by Israel's key allies, who have called to shut down this meaningless mechanism of distributing aid supplies for the already stripped population. And there have been growing calls among humanitarian agencies to restore the old traditional mechanism of distributing aid by UN agencies, including UNRWA and the WFP, to ensure that everyone in need will get enough assistance he needs, and at the same time he won't be exposed to any sort of danger.
Tareq, thank you very much indeed. Clearly there's a lot of detail in that, and we appreciate you breaking it down for us. Tareq Azzoum there in Deir al-Balah.
Don't miss out to get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.